Good afternoon. Today we are going to discuss about third part, that is process models in our first unit. Before going to learn or study about process models, we need to discuss about SDLC, which is going to stand for Software Development Life Cycle. So here we are going to discuss about SDLC. SDLC is defined as a process which is going to be used by the software industry to design, develop and test softwares with a good quality. The SDLC aims to produce a high quality software which is going to meet or exceed customer expectations and which reaches the completion within the time and cost estimation. The acronym for SDLC is Software Development Lifecycle, which can also be known as the Software Development Process. And it is going to contain a framework which is going to define tasks which has to be performed at each step in the software development process. And here there is one international standard named ISO IEC 12207 and which is going to contain or software lifecycle processes, and the main aim of this standard is to define all the tasks which has to be required for developing the application and maintain the software properly. And what is SDLC? It is a series or a process followed for a project development or within a software organization. Means any process which has to be followed for the development of the application in an organization. It is going to contain or consist of a detailed plan describing how to develop, maintain, replace and improve the quality of the software. The life cycle defines a methodology for improving the quality of software and the overall development process. And this SDLC is going to contain a well-defined structure or a sequence of stages in software engineering to develop the intended software product. And SDLC activities. First, we need to discuss various activities of the software development lifecycle. In our previous classes, in the generic framework activities, I told you that we are having 5 activities which are involved for the development of any application, that is communication, planning, modeling, construction and deployment. So those activities are containing some tasks. So here each activity of the product is going to be, means the activities which are involved for the development of the application are going to be discussed in the SDLC activities. So here SDLC is going to provide a series of steps or a series of tasks which has to be designed or follow to develop a software product with a good quality. So first activity is communication. So this is the first step where the user is going to interact with the developer for who is going to develop a software product, and is going to contain, means the user is going to contact the service provider and tries to negotiate some of the terms, because the user is not having complete technical knowledge. He may or may not have, it is not compulsory. So here the user is going to contact the service provider, the one who is going to develop the application, and he is going to explain his request, what he really wants to be developed or what application he wants to be reach his requirements, and that he may submit in service providing organization in written form. And next thing is the requirement gathering. So here this requirement gathering is going to be carried, or the software development team is going to carry the requirement gathering to gather the requirements, what are they need for the development of the application or project. The team holds discussions with various stakeholders from problem domain and tries to bring out as much information as possible on their requirements. So here the term stakeholder, who is the stakeholder? The person or the people who are related or who are going to be affected by our application are known or termed as the stakeholders, who are related to the project which we are developing. They are going to become, means they may be the users or the developers or the testers, all the people who are related to application, they are known as the stakeholders. So they are going to discuss and they will gather the information, and each one will give their own views and the ideas what they are having, and entire thing is going to be gathered as the requirements. And these requirements whatever they have gathered through discussion are going to be classified or segregated into different categories like user requirements, system requirements, and functional requirements. And the requirements are going to be collected using various ways. First one is studying the existing system and the software. Sometimes the system is already there, but means the application is already there, means which is an existing system, but we want some modifications to be done. So in that case, what we are going to do, we are going to study the existing system thoroughly and find out what are the modifications we are expected and how can we make those changes in the application. And second thing is conducting interviews of users and developers. So in this case, means the people who are willing to use the application and the people who are going to develop the application are going to be involved to give the information or ideas what they are having. So one way of gathering the requirements is by conducting the interviews of the users as well as the developers. And referring to the databases, means referring to our related applications or related projects. And next, collecting answers from the questionnaires, means collecting the answers from the questionnaires, means people who are involved in the gathering of the requirements, they will put some questions or some questionnaire is going to be prepared, and by gathering the answers to those questionnaires, the information or the requirements are going to be gathered. So the four ways of gathering the requirements are studying the existing system, conducting the interviews to the developer as well as the user, and referring to the related applications and collecting answers from the questionnaires. And second activity is feasibility study. So after, means this communication and requirement gathering belongs to the communication framework activity. And next, feasibility study. So here feasibility study means checking or verifying whether we are meeting the requirements of the customer or not while developing the application. Means are we fulfilling the requirements of the customer or not? We are going to do it in the feasibility study. So after requirements have been gathered, the team comes with a rough plan of software process. So at this step, the team analyzes software can be made to fulfill all requirements of the user, and if there is any possibility of software being no more useful, means whether the team is going to analyze whether the software whatever we are developing is going to fulfill the requirements of the customer or not. And if it is not going to fulfill the requirements of the customer, then it is going to be made some modifications. So, and along with the requirements of the customer, it is also going to check whether our application or project is going to meet the requirements financially, practically, and technologically for the organization to start the work. And there are many ways or algorithms available to check which the developers conclude the feasibility of a software project, means whether it is going to be feasible to the customer as well as to the organization. Means the application whatever we are developing is going to fulfill the requirements, and is it helpful to the customer and the organization or not, it is going to be done in our feasibility study. And system analysis. So at this step, the developers decide or make a roadmap of their plan. Means whatever they have gathered the information, and after checking whether it is useful or not, they will create a roadmap of their plan and try to bring up the best model suitable for the project. So system analysis includes understanding of software product limitations, learning system related problems or changes to be done in existing systems beforehand, and identifying addressing of the impact of project on organization as well as on the personal. And the project team analyzes the scope of the project and plans the schedule and resources accordingly. So these are the activities or the steps involved in system analysis. So let us discuss first one. Understanding of software product limitations. Means here we need to analyze the, means we need to thoroughly understand the requirements whatever we have gathered and the plan what we have made before development of the application. And here, to develop a good quality software, we need to analyze all the things thoroughly. So first one is understanding of product limitations. Means we need to understand, are there, means if we are developing a particular application, are we going to face or is it going to have any drawbacks with the development, or either the drawbacks may be related to the financial or related to the technology. It can include any type of drawbacks, but we need to understand whether our software product which we have developed is having any drawbacks or not. And learning the system problems or changes. Means if we find any problems in our system what we have developed, we need to find out the way to change those modifications or drawbacks to be rectified. Because after delivering the product to the customer, if you are identifying the problems, it may create a big issue, or we need to face the problem very severely. So instead of that, before development itself, we need to analyze, is it going to have any limitations, and if we find any limitations, we need to rectify those limitations thoroughly. And identifying and addressing the impact of project on organization and personal. Means we need to identify and address what the effect or impact of the project on organization. And the project team also analyzes the scope of the project and plans the schedule and resources accordingly. And next step is software design. So here this step is going to bring out the requirements and the analysis to some format. So with this input, means whatever we are getting the information from the user and from the requirement gathering, we are going to take this information as the input. And the output of this step is going to be in two designs, that is logical design and the physical design. Logical design means representing the application or the project in the graphical representation way. Means which may include the graphic data flow diagrams, UML diagrams, and ER diagrams. Means which is going to explain the logical, means how our application is going to work and what are the features it is going to provide. All these things we are going to represent in the design phase with the help of logical graphical representation, and sometimes by using some algorithms like pseudocodes and all these things, so that here we are getting a clear idea about the application what we are going to develop. And coding. So after designing phase, we are going for coding. Means here coding can also be known as the development phase or programming phase. So the implementation of software design starts in the writing of the code in a suitable programming language. Means the technology or the language, programming language, whichever or whatever we have selected, using that programming language, we are going to write a code so that it is going to helpful for execution of the program efficiently. Why the design should be done before coding? because if there are any errors occurring or any problems we are having or any modifications we need to implement in the project, it is easy to make those changes in the design phase instead of our coding. Because after writing the code, if you want to make any modifications, it may take long time, as well as we may be wasting our time and the budget whatever we have spent till now. So before coding, it is better to have a design phase so that we can clearly understand. And there is also one more reason why the system design, because the customer may or may not having the computer knowledge, means the technical knowledge. So here it is easy to explain him with the graphics or with the diagrams instead of explaining the code. And next thing is testing. So testing, in our surveys, it is going to say that testing is going to include 50% of the software development process. Why? Because planning, gathering of the requirements and communicating with the customers and coding, designing, this entire thing is going to have 50% of the weightage, and testing is going to spare 50% of the software development process. Because if there are any errors in the application, if we are not testing properly, it may create or it may remove a our project, means the performance of the project may be very worst. So it may ruin the software from critical levels to the, and sometimes we need to waste our entire time, budget and everything whatever we have applied. So testing is going to be done properly. So software testing is going to be done while coding by the developer, and thorough testing is going to be conducted by testing experts. And if we are aware, each company or each team or which is involved in the development of the project, they are having testing team, because their ta task is to test whether the application whatever have been developed by the developers is working, or is it according to the requirements of the customer or not, or is it having any technical or syntactical problems. It is going to be, testing is going to be done, and this testing is going to be done by various testing experts at different or various levels of code. Sometimes it may be done at a module phase, and we are having different types of testing like integration testing, unit testing, alpha, beta, and on the testing concept we are having a separate unit. So here why we need testing, that much is enough to know. So early discovery of errors and their remedy is going to be the key to develop a reliable software. And if we are having any problems, here itself we can rectify those problems. And integration. So once we have developed the product, we need, means that project may include different modules or subparts of the application. So once we have developed or we are ready with all the applications, means coding has been completed with all the modules, we need to integrate and we need to connect our database, means front end should be connected with the backend, that is databases and other programs and libraries we need to join or connect. That concept is nothing but integration. And this stage of SDLC is going to be involved in the development or in connecting of software with outside world entities. And after the integration, implementation. So this means installing the software on user machines. At each time, software needs post after installing what are the configuration at the user end we are having, means to install this particular application what we need, means what the configuration at the user end should be there, and software is going to be tested for portability and adaptability, means whether it is working on all the OS and is it going to have any changes to be done. That is going to be checked during the implementation phase, means making it to be working. And last step or last activity in SDLC is operation and maintenance. So this phase confirms the software operation in terms of more efficiency and lesser errors. Means it is going to confirm the software is going to work with more efficient and less problem. And if required, the users have to be trained on the application what they are going to be using, and documentation should be provided so that it is going to help the user how to operate the software and how to keep the software to be working or operational. And the software is going to be maintained timely by updating the code according to the changes taking place in user environment and technology. And this phase is going to face, or it may have, it can be the challenging phase to identify the hidden bugs and real world unidentified problems, because it is, this is the phase which is going to be faced after delivering of the product to the customer. So as from the customer side, we need to take so many suggestions, and sometimes we might be getting the problems which are not identified by the developer and the tester. So some way we can, to somewhat it may be the challenging phase. Okay, this is about different activities of the SDLC. And let us take one example to explain this SDLC. For example, I want to develop a particular application. So as a, let us imagine I am the customer. I want one application to be developed for my organization or for my personal use. So I will go to one software developer and I will explain my request and my expectations in the through the application. And after gathering these requirements, means I will just explain what I want and in what way that application should provide service to me. As a customer, I may or may not having the technical knowledge or the computer knowledge. So just I will go and explain the developer about the requirements of my application, what I really want. So that is going to be done in the communication phase. After that, which phase we have discussed? Requirement gathering. So now the developer, after listening my request, is going to conduct a meeting or sometimes a discussion with all the people who are related to the development of the application as well as the customer. So just we are going to discuss and they will gather the information. That phase is nothing but requirement gathering analysis. And after that, feasibility study. So in this phase, they are going to check whatever they have gathered is going to be helpful for the application development which is requested by the customer. Is it going, if we are developing the application in this way, or these are the features which we are implementing, so is it going to fulfill the requirements of the customer, or is it going to suitable for the organization to develop or not? It is going to be implemented. And after that, means after the feasibility study, if it is feasible, then problem analysis, means it is, we are going to analyze all the requirements whatever we have gathered, and planning is going to be done related to our time, money and all these things. Once the planning is done, we are having the rough structure. So with that rough structure or rough idea, first we will develop a graphical representation. Why? Because if we are having, means as I am the customer, I am not having or I may not be having the technical knowledge. So if you explain, means if the developer explains me the entire project or what the application is going, how it is going to work and how they are going to develop, it may or may not be understandable for me, means to the customer. So to avoid that kind of confusion and problems, it is better to explain it by using the different ways, that is the design model or modeling phase, which we call it as the system design. So in this design, the requirements whatever have been identified will be taken as the input. So with that input, they are going to develop the model. It may be the graphical representation. And once after the graphical representation has been satisfied, Means after development, again review is going to be conducted by the developer by involving the customer. So if they are satisfied, then they will go for writing of the code, which we call it as the development phase. So while writing the code, we are going to check are there any errors are occurring. So even though we have cross-checked so many times, there may be some problems which we are facing. So again, testing after coding, and after all the modules of the project has been developed, we will integrate, means combine, and check whether the entire application is working properly or not. So checking of the application, whether it is working or not, or there any errors, that phase is nothing but testing. And after the testing, we are going for implementation. That is, we are checking whether it is going to work properly at the user end. And the last phase is operation and maintenance. So once we have delivered the product, this phase is going to be occurred. That is operation and maintenance. Means in the future, we are going to check whether the application, whatever developed according to the customer requirements, is fulfilling or satisfying the customer or not. Means is it working properly or not. And if we are getting, it means if the customer is getting any problem, we need to take those problems into consideration and solve those problems. That is, maintenance has to be done. So this is the brief view of the SDLC. And next we are going to discuss about process models.